Be Wealthy and Smart, episode 801.
Step into a world of wealth and financial freedom without budgets, boredom, or bosses on Be Wealthy and Smart. And now, here's your host, Linda P. Jones.
Welcome to Be Wealthy and Smart. I'm Linda P. Jones, America's Wealth Mentor, empowering women and men worldwide to financial freedom. On today's show, we're going to talk about how to have that money conversation with your family. Because talking about money is one of the most difficult things to do, especially with family, whether that's with parents or children or other loved ones, a spouse, perhaps a partner. It's very difficult to talk about money. And so I'm going to share with you an article today that has some suggestions that I think make a lot of sense and might be just really good timing with what we're all going through right now. But before I do, I want to just make a little bit of a shout out. I had some great news this week and was notified that, again, our global presence is growing. In the last 30 days, Be Wealthy and Smart was number 2 in investing in Trinidad and Tobago. Hello and thank you. Number 3 in Qatar. Thank you very much. Or I guess people say Qatar. Either way, thank you very much. We were number 3 in Bermuda, number 3 in Zimbabwe. So thank you very much for that. Those are new rankings in those countries for us, as far as I can tell. So thank you so much for listening and for sharing the podcast with friends and family. All right, let's talk about how to navigate money matters with your family. This article comes to us from CNBC and was written by Michelle Fox. It says the coronavirus pandemic may be putting you in some uncomfortable financial situations with your family. A relative may have asked for a loan, or a young adult child may be looking to move back home. You may be struggling financially and haven't addressed it with your kids, or you may be thinking about estate planning but don't know how to broach the subject. Instead of avoiding the issue, there's no better time to address it head-on than right now, says Winnie Sun, co-founder and managing director of Irvine, California Sun Group Wealth Partners. Bringing up money with family can be uncomfortable and even seen as taboo, because it's not a normal conversation that's brought up, she said. While it's easier to speak with financial professionals about your finances, we try to keep peace with the family, have lighter conversations, and speak about things that we think will unite us, she explained. However, having these more intimate financial discussions can actually bring your family closer together. Nearly half of all Americans, 47%, struggle to discuss finances with their loved ones, according to a November 2019 survey by Lincoln Financial. Personal finance was the third most challenging subject for families, behind sex and death, the poll found. It's easy to let things go unaddressed when things are going well, said Sarah Newcomb, Director of Behavioral Science at Morningstar. I just want to pause there and remind you that there was a study that I once talked about on the podcast where women would rather talk about their own death than talk about money. That says a lot, and it tells us that people are not comfortable at all talking about money, whether it's talking about your salary and how much your income is or what your net worth is, or talking about it in relation to other people with what's going on in the family, etc. So it's a challenge for everyone, but something that we need to at least give you some ideas on how you can do this a little bit easier. The article goes on to say, when money becomes tight or life becomes unpredictable, there's always room for disagreement. The same goes when you combine financial lives, such as after a marriage or when a young adult child moves back home. When our financial lives are separate from one another, there's no need for conflict. But once someone else's management style starts to affect your own financial goals, there is potential for conflict, Newcomb explained. While it may seem like a good idea to broach money matters during the family holiday meal, don't, said Cameron Huddleston, author of Mom and Dad We Need to Talk, and a family finance expert with Careful, an app that monitors and protects the money of aging parents. For one, there may be people at the gathering who don't need to be a part of the conversation, she said. Then there is the alcohol component. If someone has had too much wine, the conversation could go downhill real fast, she said, and some family gatherings are tense already. So I just have to pause there and kind of chuckle and say, I think I've attended a few of those dinners where things have gone south quickly with too much wine and it being not an appropriate time to talk and family members bringing up certain things. Oh yes, I've been a part of those and you probably have too. So I agree with all of that advice. That is not the time to bring it up. The article goes on to say, so the last thing you want to do is start talking about money to turn up the tension. If you're visiting your parents or your adult kids are in town and you need to talk, at least wait until after the meal. Find a time when you can sit down and have a discussion, when all of you are relaxed and emotions aren't running high, Huddleston said. So I just want to pause there and say, rather than wait until after dinner, I think I would make a special appointment to talk about a financial matter. You may or may not disclose ahead of time that that's your intention to talk about that thing, but I know there's certain times where I had difficult topics with my elderly mother when she was alive and I would want to bring them up, but just didn't ever find the right time. It just always seemed awkward. But when we would go for lunch or when we would go for dinner, just the two of us, it just seemed like there was a time when I could sort of slip it in a little easier, talk about something, kind of have a nice transition to bring up something, like, well, Mom, remember that time, da 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 da. And, now that we're talking about this, have you ever thought about, or, gee, Mom, remember when we blah, 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 blah? Well, have you ever thought about doing things this way? So you can kind of slip in a transitional sentence a little bit easier, maybe when it's one-on-one and you're just going with having a conversation and then you kind of just generally bring it up. Like, hey, Mom, I know a lot of your friends are living in adult living places. How do you feel about living in some sort of retirement situation? Or do you prefer to stay at home and have home health care? That is an uncomfortable topic no matter what to talk with an elderly parent about, but you can kind of ease into it a little bit during a lunch or a dinner, just the two of you. That's what I would recommend. All right, but let's see what else this article has to say. It continues on by saying, here's how you can handle some of the more uncomfortable financial issues that may arise with your family. The first is requests for loans or financial support. It's never easy dealing with a family member who is asking for money to pay for bills or for a loan to get them through a rough patch. If you don't feel comfortable with lending or financially supporting someone, you shouldn't, said Sun, a member of the CNBC Financial Advisor Council. If you decide to lend to your family, you should assume there may be a possibility you'll never be paid back. About 60% of Americans have loaned a family friend or family member money, expecting to get paid back, according to a 2019 survey by Bankrate. However, 37% of those 60% who loaned money found that if they fronted the cash, they reported losing money, and 21% said the personal relationship worsened. Give an honest answer quickly so the family member can pivot and look for other resources for help, Sun advises. You may even introduce them to a banking contact or co-sign a loan with an institution you are comfortable with. Well, I would caution you on doing any co-signing of loans because ultimately, of course, you are fully responsible for that loan. So really think that through if you are going to be a co-signer, in my opinion. The article goes on to say, don't beat yourself up if you say no. Money management is emotional, said Newcomb. Just remember that you shouldn't undermine your own financial stability. Recognize when saying no is the merciful thing to do for yourself, and that is okay, she said. It's okay to protect your own solvency. The second thing is adult kids at home. Young adults are moving home to live with mom and dad in record numbers. In July, 52% of them lived with one or both of their parents, up from 47% in February, according to a Pew Research Center analysis. That surpasses the peak hit during the Great Depression, Pew said. Parents should talk to their children about their contribution to the household. Some may contribute financially to the budget if they are employed, or they may use the time to amass savings so that when they move out, they are financially secure. If your adult child isn't bringing in any income or is setting their money aside into a savings account, there are other ways to have him or her contribute to the household. That may mean cooking the meals to lift the burden off of someone else, or providing childcare or help with virtual learning to younger siblings, Newcomb said. They are bringing their resources, their creativity to the fore, she explained. They are giving to the household. I just want to pause there and say, well, what about chores? I think kids should be able to help around the household, doing some cleaning, doing some gardening, doing some taking out the trash, or any kind of grocery shopping for you. Even if it's your money, they can go and pick up the items for you. There should be a way that kids need to do something. Even if they can't contribute financially, I think they should be doing something with their time to help you out and take some of the burden off of your shoulders. The next category is spending money on the wrong thing. You may not like the way your 20-something daughter is spending or the money management style of your spouse. Instead of immediately focusing on the numbers, realize that there is much more personalization involved in how we deal with our finances, Newcomb said. Every decision people make with their money is a genuine attempt to meet a real and valid human need, she explained. For instance, if you see someone spending a lot of money going out with friends, you may view that as irresponsible, or you can say they really prioritize their social relationships. The ultimate goal is to come up with a strategy where all family members' needs are met. That may mean finding a way to meet that need in a way that may cost less money. So if feeling a sense of beauty is essential for you, instead of buying shiny objects, take a bubble bath or get a pedicure. You also have a need for security. You also have a need for stability, Newcomb said. You don't meet one need at the expense of another. The next category is estate planning. Estate planning is one of the most important financial conversations you should have with your family, Sun said. She suggests finding a reason to bring up the conversation, such as a family member or friend who is going through it, or an article you read about it. Children who want to address the topic with their parents should find a quiet, relaxed place to do so. Just say, we should figure this out together because I want to make sure I know how you feel about this and what you'd want, Sun said. Let your parents guide the conversation and know that it doesn't have to happen all after Thanksgiving dinner, but it should spark the conversation of future conversations. If you are a parent who wants to talk to your adult children about your plans, bear in mind that your kid probably doesn't want to talk to you about getting older or dying. Let them know that it's important to you that your children and possibly grandchildren keep what you've saved for them. Let them know there are some decisions that still need to be made and you want them to be a part of the conversation, and pause, Sun said. At that point, let them respond and listen to their responses, she added. It will help start the conversation. End of article. Well, there's a lot of good stuff there, a lot of good suggestions. It's never easy to talk about money. It's always uncomfortable. But the best thing to do is prepare yourself to listen well and to ask questions and not be the one to be lecturing or to be coming on too strong about money. People have emotional reasons why they respond the way they do about money. Sometimes it happens that something occurred in our childhood, and so we are triggered by certain things. Other things are certain beliefs that we have or even blocks that we have. So there's all kinds of subconscious issues going on with money. So whenever you bring up the topic of money, you have to realize it needs to be a give and take conversation and not a one-way lecture, especially parent to child or child to elderly parent. You need to have that two-way conversation going. And so be ready to ask questions, be ready to be a good listener, And when they respond, it's also a good idea to ask another question rather than to jump on their answer right away and try to convince them to go in a different direction. So for example, if you're asking a question and they give a response, don't respond back right away. Ask a further clarifying question to really get to the heart of what they really think or why they're acting the way they are. So really try to get to the root of it rather than just jumping to conclusions or just staying on the surface. These things are very deep, so I recommend that you ask questions and be a really good listener. If you do that and also repeat back to them what they have said to you to make sure that you're really understanding what they said, that can help avoid a lot of arguments that are caused by money. After all, that is the number one thing that married couples fight about. So if you can really get to the clarifying questions and then repeating back what you've heard, at least your spouse or partner or child or parent will know that they've been heard. And that's one of the elements of really good communication. And that's what we need to have when we're talking about money. If you haven't yet subscribed to Be Wealthy and Smart, hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified as soon as new podcasts are available. And don't forget my whole podcast library, the wealth mentoring library, if you will, that is there, a body of knowledge for you to learn about financial freedom for free, is on my website at lindapjones.com/podcasts. All of my podcasts are there, and I just hit my number 800th podcast in the last episode. So that was really an exciting milestone. Thank you so much for those of you who have been here from the beginning and to our new listeners who have recently found us. But there is a whole wealth mentoring library for you. It's not just what you find on iTunes. That's only the latest 300. So there's a whole bunch more for you to explore, and a lot of people tell me they go through the whole library and listen to all the episodes. So have fun binging and learning and getting your financial freedom faster. That's all for today. Until next time, live the good life and be wealthy and smart.
Thank you for listening to Be Wealthy and Smart with Linda P. Jones. Share the wealth and tell your family and friends about the show. Check out our website, blog, and social media for more riches at www.bewealthyandsmart.com.